Welcome to the August board wrap-up as Ponca City Public Schools have begun the upcoming 2014-15 calendar school year. Board of Education held their August board meeting. Want to talk about that with Dr. Pennington, but I guess the first place to start is with how'd the start of school go, and in particular for those young students that are going to Washington Elementary while Woodlands gets worked on. How'd it go?
It went great. In fact, it went better than we anticipated. Some of that was because obviously we worked very hard with parents into the year last year to inform them of exactly what the traffic patterns were going to be. And then we had the Ponca City Police Department did a really nice job of having officers on site yesterday and again today to help with that. And I think that as we move forward, as parents get used to, a rhythm eventually develops of picking kids up and dropping them off, and so I anticipate that things are going to go well this year. Obviously, it's going to be interesting the first day that we have rain or we have snow, sleet, or ice or those kinds of things. But that school was open for 50 years, and so we've had that issue before of a mixture of high school traffic and parent drop off and pickup traffic. We have it all around the district, so it's not an unusual thing. It's just that we haven't done it in that location in probably about 7 years. So it made it a little unusual, and I'm sure there were some people who drove up 7th Street yesterday and kind of thought, "Whoa, what's going on?" Because as much as you talk about it, as much as you put it in the newspaper, as much as it's on the radio, until the first day you experience it, you're really just not ready for it.
One of the changes, and people may have noticed an article, but security in our schools is going to be tighter this year. It's going to continue to get tighter, I imagine, but in particular at Ponca City High School, if you go to the high school, you are going to see tighter security measures right when you walk in.
Yeah, we've obviously for the last several years we've been, even before the Sandy Hook incident, we were in the process of making security corrections to our buildings, and I guess improvements is a better word. And so, if you go back and you look at starting at East Middle School several years ago, we created a vestibule where you walk into the building and then you have to go into the office before you can get into the site. And we have a machine called a lobby guard where you scan your driver's license. So we did that at East first. We made some renovations to that office so that the secretarial staff could see people coming into the building. We did the same thing at West when we did that renovation. As you mentioned, we've got Woodlands closed down right now, and the reason Woodlands is closed down is obviously some of that is we just needed to do significant renovations to that building. The building is over 50 years old, and we did some work a couple of years ago, but we had more work to do. But one of the big parts of that renovation is we're taking the office out of the middle of the building and moving it to the front, so that after school starts, when you come into that building, you go to the office before you get into the school. We did that at Union this summer. If you drive by Union, you'll notice you really can't tell that our architects did such a nice job. It looks like the original part of the building, but we actually moved the office of Union to the front of the building, so that when you come in after hours, after school starts, you walk in. There's a vestibule. The doors are locked. You get buzzed into the office. We did that at Garfield. So what we're doing at the high school is just our extension of that project. The high school is different in that, that's a huge office complex, and there's no way that we could just move the office to the front. It would have been nice when we made that. I guess it was probably 96, 97 when we built that math and science wing and put the office in that area. If we would have had the foresight to move the office to the very front, but we didn't do that. Of course, the high school is even more complicated because all the amount of students who exit the building to go to the Fine Arts Building or exit the building to go to Robinson Fieldhouse. But what we've done is we had a vestibule there already. We just have, we've kind of put a temporary structure up that after hours is going to direct you to the, I guess it would be the north side of those doors where you'll walk in and one of our security guards that we have employed anyway, is going to be manning a station there, and then they're going to take your driver's license, give you a visitor's pass, and then you go into the office. In the past, what used to happen is when you walked into the building, you went to the office to check in and get your visitor's pass. So we're going to do it outside before you actually get into the building, and then eventually we're actually going to. I think right now we've got like a kind of a temporary pathway, and we're going to be building a structure that will direct that. Now, the problem at the high school, at most of our other sites, once school starts, the only people who are using those outside doors are visitors that are coming into the building. The high school is different because of the Fine Arts Building, which we have our choral classes, we have our orchestra band, and we have our actual art classes. We have kids in and out of those doors all day long. So it's we got to figure that out, and because obviously we don't want those kids don't have time to funnel into one door to get into the building. We've got to have all those doors operational. So, we're going to figure it out. Probably, long term, someday we'll have a discussion about building an enclosed connection to the Fine Arts Building and the rest of the high school. Again, when you do that, you kind of worry about, well, what is the aesthetics of that? What does it look like? How do we make it look like it was, what we always intended to do? Again, hopefully someday we'll have the ability to build a performing arts center, which will be connected to the high school, and then that would alleviate some of that problem. So, I mean, but that's what we've done. That's a long answer to a short question.
While we're still talking about construction, how long is it going to be until you and staff employees get to move into the East Grand location of the Ponca City administration?
Well, that changes all the time. Originally, that was scheduled to happen in December. I think now we're looking toward the middle or end of January for that to happen. So again, we're excited about that. We're excited to put that building back into use. It's been interesting. We've been working on that for quite a while, and it's different people notice different things. Whenever the dumpsters showed up on site and we started hauling all that rubble out of there, we had lots of questions. But we've even had more questions about what we're doing in that building in the last really 6 weeks since the windows were taken out. It's like when those windows came out, all of a sudden people realized there's a building there. And I tell you what was really funny the other day, we had somebody that asked one of our board members, well, when did they when did they write administration on the top of that building? And the word administration's been on that building since 1922, since it was built. But I mean, if you think about it, while depending upon when you came into Ponca City, if you were here from probably about the mid-'80s back, that was the administration building. Since the administration moved to this building, which has been, I think, over 20 years ago, this has been the administration building, and that's just been a building. If you didn't come to Ponca City till the late 90s, early 2000s, you remember that as the alternative school. So, the building's been several things over the years. For lots of Ponca City natives, that was band, or that was where the wrestling room was, or that was where the shop was. So the building's had lots of different uses, and we're going to restore it to its original design, or its original intent, which was to be school administration. And we're not going to use all the space right now. Eventually we will, because we need training space. We need places where our teachers can meet, where we can meet in large groups and and right now we're kind of limited in what we can do. And so, you know, again, we're going to probably remodel probably actually going to touch about 2/3 of the building. About a third of it will be left undone. But we've got plans for that, and we think it's going to be a great addition. And you know, the thing about all these renovations that we're doing, you know, people sometimes ask why. Well, one reason is because our buildings are old, and so lots of things go bad over time, and so you have to fix those things. But the second thing is you know, we see this as preservation, not only of the history of Ponca City, but a good steward of money. And so you know, we're gonna have a renovated administration building that will, you know, serve this district for the foreseeable future. And you know, so for 50, 60, 75, 100 years, you know, we'll be able to use that facility. And the building will be 100 years older. It seems like a long way away. You know, 2022 is not tomorrow, but it's 7 years away. And that goes pretty quick in the school business. So that, you know, so we're going to restore that. And I think it's you know, the bottom line is it's a whole lot cheaper to restore that building than it would have been to build a new one. Fortunately for us, some of those buildings we have were very well built, and we can do that. Now, does that mean we'll always be able to do that? No. There may be a time that we have to have some serious thoughts about building some new schools, because the buildings we have, we've renovated them as much as we can renovate them, and they just need to be, you know, kind of retired out and new buildings built. We did that at Garfield a few years ago. I mean, it had lived its life. And it wasn't any reason to put any more money into that building. That could eventually happen to some other places across the district. We did that with Lincoln back in 1995. We needed a new building. And so, but I think that if you look at it, if you take a big view, long-term perspective, we've done a good job in this district of constructing good facilities. We've done a good job of renovating them as much as we can. And then when we need to, we've been willing to build new facilities. So we're excited about that. And people always say, well, what are you going to do with the building you've got? Well, this will become the home of child nutrition. And so we'll move that staff up here, and then we'll create some additional freezer space for them in the back storage area. The freezer we have right now is not big enough to hold all of the frozen foods that we have in the way they need to be stored. The federal and state child nutrition people are very specific about how we store things. Not only how it's not just a matter of keeping it cold, but is it displayed in such a way that when they come in and do audits, they can easily go in and they can count how much frozen meat you have or frozen vegetables or whatever. And right now our space is so small, we just kind of have stuff crammed in. And so, you know, they've been after us to fix that for a while, and this will allow us to do that.
Well, child nutrition, that's a big program. That employs a lot of people in our school system too.
You know, we serve more foods than all the we serve more meals than all the restaurants in Ponca City combined. And most people don't think about that, you know, but when you add lunch and breakfast together, we serve more meals than all the restaurants in Ponca City combined. And so it is a big operation, and it's an operation that's getting kind of controversial because of some changes that have been, some of them that child nutrition directors supported about improving the nutritional quality of our food. We've had some new federal guidelines and that are really working hard to change the way people eat and help develop children early good eating habits. But you know, that's a switch and that's a change, and I'm sure that parents, if they will hear throughout the school year some complaints about school lunch. And of course we've always complained about school lunch, right? Even when we were in school, we went home and said lunch wasn't any good, didn't taste good. We've all said that. So it's not a new complaint, but it is a different way of looking at eating. A lot more fruits, a lot more vegetables, a lot more whole grains, a lot less of the stuff that most of us in America like to eat, especially our kids. So, Jeff's done a great job with that, but it's going to be, it changed, and change is never easy.
The school board meeting, I know that a big focus was on third grade retention, what we're going to do with those kids, and I want to give you some time to talk about that too.
I think what do people? I think the question I get is, so how many kids did we end up retaining in Ponca City? And we ended up retaining 19 students. Of those 19 students, there are some kind of characteristics that that jump out about them that I look at as an administrator. One, a significant number of those students had what we would consider to be excessive absences. They missed a lot of school, and they didn't just miss a lot of school as third graders, they missed lots of school as second graders and first graders and kindergartens. And so one of the discussions we have with parents is that it's pretty important your kids are in school. And one thing I would say to our audience that's watching this, attendance affects performance. You can't learn if you're not in school. So if you're a parent of a child, it's imperative that they come to school every day. Now, obviously, we don't want children in school when they're sick. But, and as a parent, sometimes you have to make the best decision you can about whether your child is really sick or whether they just don't want to go to school today. And again, it's been a long time since I was a student. It's been a long time since I had children that were school age. But one thing I remember is there were some mornings I didn't want to go to school. There were some mornings my kids didn't want to go to school. My answer to them was the same answer my dad gave me. You're going to school. It's not debatable. It's not a discussion. You're going to go to school. And unfortunately, it seems like today that we need parents to have a little tougher love. You're going to school. It's not a question, unless you're really sick. And sometimes as parents you got to figure it out. You got to discern whether they're really sick or whether they just don't want to go to school. So that was an issue. Movement, moving. Some of these students were students who, while they've been in Ponca City, they've been in 3 or 4 different schools. Stability is important. I would encourage parents to find out, pick a place to live, and stay there. Because while our teachers all get the same training, they all use the same curriculum, they all use the same textbooks. Moving is hard on kids. Being in a different school every year is hard on children. Some people do fine with that. You'll have my first wife was an Army brat, and so she moved a lot. But the thing was, every kid in that school was moving a lot, and so that seems to make it a little bit different. So being there is extremely important. There's some things we need to do better. We had some young people that when we looked at where they were academically, we should have been advocating for them being assessed, because we think the students are going to qualify for special services. Again, what we told the board the other night is probably, even without the third grade retention law, we probably would have retained 10 of these students. So there's 9 students that we retained that we probably would not have retained otherwise. Again, there's been lots of discussion about this law, and I want to make people understand, my opposition to the law has always been that we were going to use one test to make a decision about a child, and we weren't going to have a discussion about it. And I am adamantly opposed to that. I'm also opposed to the fact that we have this law in place that puts all this pressure on third graders, but we haven't done anything to give school districts the tools they need to put the programs in place, pre-K through 2, to correct those issues. I know people get tired of hearing about this, but we cut $198 million out of our K-12 general fund budgets since 2009. This last session, we restored about $40 million of that cut. I still have less money per child to educate kids in 2014-15 than I had in 2009-10. We've identified we have a problem across this state with reading. We've decided that third grade is going to be kind of the year that we really take a long, hard look at it. What have we done to help kids be better? We haven't done anything. We have more kids in a classroom today in kindergarten, first, and second than we had 20 years ago. We have less people coming out of college able to teach early literacy than we've ever had before. We can't find support individuals. We can't find enough reading specialists. We can't find the specialized training that we need for teachers to have. We can't find teachers with that training. So we've got a problem, okay? Third grade literacy, all this research about if you can't read at the third grade, all the bad effects that has. But what are we doing before third grade to help with the problem? And the answer is in Oklahoma, we're not doing anything. We're not doing anything. And the equivalent is, if the Thunder have a player that can't shoot free throws, what are we going to do to help the guy with his free throws? You got to put something in place to help. It may be that he's a terrible free throw shooter and you need to cut him from the team and go on. But it could be he just needs more practice, better coaching, maybe some other things. I don't know what they'd be. But we're not doing any of that stuff preliminary. We're just showing up at the ball game and expecting somebody to be a 90% free throw shooter. We haven't done anything to help with anything in the past. Not that we don't want to. I mean, our people are working hard doing the best they can, but we again, it takes money it just does. I wish it didn't. I wish we could educate for free, but we've got to have funds. And that's the other big issue that we talked about Monday night, and that has to do with teaching staff. We were extremely happy that Monday night we could announce that we had every teaching position filled in this district. We couldn't say that Tuesday at 3 o'clock because we had a resignation Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Enid had 30 jobs open the Monday before school started. Stillwater still had 20. I don't know how many jobs are still open in the state. What I know is that I would hire 3 early childhood positions, but I can't find teachers. Educators have been for years trying to tell elected officials that we were headed toward a teacher shortage, but nobody paid attention to that. And so all we did was, in the interim, create an environment that most experienced teachers consider to be toxic or hostile because of all the requirements and all the assessment and all. So they've just said, I'm done, and they're retiring and doing other things. Because of that environment, young people have decided not to go into teaching, or because of pay, they've decided not to go into teaching. And so we're losing people out the back end, and at the front end, we don't have as many people coming into the profession as we used to, and so we've got a problem. And again, that problem affects everything. We think we've hired some really good teachers this year. But I will tell you that teacher quality is not what it was 10 years ago. I don't have 5 good applicants and I get to pick among the 5. Now I have 1. And I just hope that when I offer them, they'll take the position I'm offering and they won't go someplace else. The problem we've got is not only is it an issue that we don't have as many students in Oklahoma getting education certification, the ones that do get certification have lots of options. And it's not just within Oklahoma options. Every state that touches our border pays their teachers better than we do. And so, as a young person, as a teacher, I get to pick. And so when that happens, when we have, and it doesn't have to be, you know, if we have 10% of our new college graduates go out of state to teach, that just makes the competition for the 90% that's left even tougher. I can't go recruit out of Oklahoma unless we just we have 2 young people from Indiana this year. And it's just one of those lucky things. We have an assistant principal that happened to be talking to his parents and mentioned that we were having trouble finding teachers in Ponca City. His parents happened to go to church with a family in Broken Arrow who had a daughter that grew up in Tulsa but went to college in Indiana. And she was getting ready to come back and teach, and she was, going to come back home. And so we just immediately made contact with her, got her to Ponca City, got her interviewed, got her hired before Broken Arrow Union jinxed, before she applied to them. And then we asked her, do you have any friends that don't have jobs yet? And she happened to have a friend that had applied in Indiana, Illinois, that area, but they just hadn't gotten around to hiring their staff yet. They start school later than we do, and these girls were friends, and so they just kind of made the decision they'd teach together their first year. Well, that's how we got them. We didn't get them because of salary. We didn't get them because of benefits. We didn't get them for any of those reasons. The typical reasons that people relocate out of state. We had a connection with an assistant principal, or we would have 2 jobs open right now. So we're going to have to, as a state, at least have a discussion about this. And I think that if we don't get serious about teacher compensation and class sizes and all those kinds of the quality of the work environment, then we're going to be in real trouble. And again, that affects our kids. And look, there are people out there who don't, it doesn't bother them that we can't find teachers or that we have 30 kids in a classroom. They want to see an education system where kids go sit in front of a computer all day long, and there's a teacher that's maybe sitting in Oklahoma City or someplace, and if they have any questions or they need some help, they interface with that teacher over the computer screen. There's a place for that, but to think that that's what our entire education system would be, I don't think, that's not what I want for my grandkids. I don't think that's good for kids. I sure don't think that'll teaches us how to work together and play together and interact with each other, which is a big part of what we do in school. And not every kid learns that way. There are a select number of people who could do all of their learning over a computer and do online learning or virtual learning, but it's a small group. And so, we're going to have to talk about it. We're going to have to figure out what Oklahoma wants to do. It's going to take some leadership at the state level to come to this conclusion. But if we don't seriously start addressing the teacher ed teacher quality problem, the teacher number problem, we're going to be in trouble. And it's not like you can snap your fingers and all of a sudden have a bunch of teachers. I mean, it's a process. You know, in Kansas, they passed a law that basically says anybody that's got a college degree can go teach. Well, first of all, again, when you get back down to salaries, I don't think there's very many college graduates. If they wanted to be teachers, they would already be in teacher ed. They've already looked at the pay and said, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do something else. So we can't continue to try to just come up with the next what seems like easy solution to these problems. We're going to have to get serious about them, or those numbers of kids who don't read proficient is going to skyrocket because we've got 30 kids in a first grade classroom as opposed to having 20. And those students who struggle reading aren't getting individual attention that they need because that teacher doesn't have time to do it. So, it's a big problem, and it's something that it's not an immediate crisis, but it'll be a crisis 10, 15 years from now.
Anything else before we wrap up our show?
We just, again, slow down, drive carefully through school zones. Remember that little kids and really even teenagers, they don't make great decisions sometimes, so you have to watch out for them. Be aware, and right now, this week I saw lots of parents walking their kids to school. As we move forward, you're going to see more and more of those young people walking themselves to school. So just be careful. Just be careful.
Great advice. Chris Adams behind the camera, Dr. Pennington, I'm Phil Turney, and that's the board wrap-up.